Theater of the Mind.
Theater of the Mindset.
Stories behind the roles, telling tales, heroic spotlights and critical fails, half-hour calls, thank you five, which of these dice will keep you alive? Backstage at the theater, backstage at Mindset.
Welcome, everyone, to Backstage at Theater of the Mindset. I'm your kind and generous DM, Justin Gerardo, and this time, backstage, I am up in the catwalk, but very specifically as close to the wall as possible, gripping on to anything I can hold on to, because I have a horrible fear of heights. Why am I up here? Joining me backstage is Nick Traeger. Traeger, where are you?
Hi, I'm Nick Traeger. I'm furiously unplugging and plugging back in every single XLR cable on the soundboard as the show is starting.
Yeah, that sounds just about right. Also joining me is Shelby Myers. Shelby, where are you?
I'm in the costume loft, and I'm trying on the old Christmas costumes from last year, and I'm in a giant snowman costume.
Perfect. I hope that goes well for you. And last but not least, Steve Ettinger. Steve, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm Steve Ettinger, and I am at Craft Services because before we get back to work, I need a sandwich and as many olives as I can carry.
Great. I love that. Awesome.
So bloated with salt.
Great. I am super excited to kind of chat about all things Arc 1. It's been a long road getting here, and I think we've got a lot to chat about. A ton happened in this first arc, and I'm super excited to kind of hear from your perspective how that felt, and particularly because for most of us, this is our first time recording a podcast, and simultaneously our first time really playing a campaign of Daggerheart. I know I've got lots of thoughts on kind of trying to combine those experiences, but I'm kind of curious from you all. How does that feel? What are some highlights for you all?
I know for me, the biggest thing that I'm having to get used to is listening back to myself. Just because I come from like an improv background, and usually it's like you do a show and then you never think about that character ever again. And so then coming into this, and now I'm like listening and actively critiquing myself the whole time. I can't turn off the critic that's trying to like give myself notes, because it's like, nope, it's done. Yeah, but it's really cool, and it's fun to like see how I can improve as a player. You know,
I have played a whole lot of TTRPGs in my life, most of them with Justin. So for me, picking up Daggerheart was probably the easiest part of this process. I felt like it was a system that was pretty intuitive and that lent itself well to storytelling, to the kind of campaign that we've been playing here. And that meant I could spend a whole lot of my energy focusing on doing something I've never done before, which is the like having my voice recorded and doing the improv part that Shelby's already familiar with. And I think Shelby put it really well. I spent a lot of my time listening back to these episodes that have been put out thinking, oh, I don't know if I was like super consistent in how I was doing X, Y, or Z. And as we were recording, that was an adjustment for me in terms of like having to care a lot about the decisions my character was making and the impact that would have going forward into the rest of the story.
It's interesting that you kind of talk about that. I think for me, I a little bit have the opposite experience where I get a lot of reassurance in myself when I'll be listening to kind of us doing a scene, and I'll think in the middle, like you'll say something and I'll think to myself, oh, I hope I respond like this. And then I do. And I'm like, if nothing else, I'm consistent. I knew I saw that joke and I took it, and I continue to take it even in hindsight. Yep, that feels good.
I love it. I feel like I had an unfair advantage because peek behind the screen, we actually recorded the entire second season, thinking it might be the first season of Theater of the Mindset, and so I got to play an entire 22 or so episodes, probably. I intentionally made a character for that. No spoilers, but kind of spoilers. That is just kind of a dumb idiot. That's just kind of along for the ride. Because as I was trying to learn how to record a podcast with 6 people in the room, and also try and play and be a performer, seemed like a bad idea all at once. So that was really. I got to like kind of like watch what worked and watch what didn't work, and also being in the sort of like sound editor producer chair for post production. I got to like go, oh, these are the things that make scenes really good. These are the things that like, these are the types of jokes that hit. These are the types of things that don't hit. And so I definitely got like spoiled by having a much larger picture than you guys did.
Kind of speaking of that much larger picture, I obviously, like, recording this first arc, know where I want to take things. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective as players, starting with episode 1, where you are playing like the younger versions of yourselves, and comparing that to where you are here at the end of arc 1, knowing and finding out about the Incarnate King. How much of a different plot, or like where were you at as a player, and how did your character kind of grow and change from that first, like, oh, we're going to a party, to like, oh no, we've uncovered, well, I assume, oh no, like, oh gosh, we've like uncovered this plot. Like, what was that character? How was that? How did that feel, kind of experiencing that?
So for Lucan, he definitely starts from a place where he has what I'll call definitely like a privilege, but maybe even like a charmed life. He grew up pretty well off.
That's what the Sugar Ray
in that
song's
first
about.
Episode.
That's what the Sugar Ray song's about. Is about Lucan.
Right.
Yeah.
Third Eye Blind.
Those are the same band.
Semi-charmed kind of like, absolutely not.
Canonically, in my brain, those are the same band. Continue.
I'm going to move past that before this turns into a Third Eye Blind cast.
Yeah, fair.
But he has parents who just let him do whatever he wants. He doesn't have a whole lot of like guardrails. And then as we go into the first, what we'll say like adult episode or grown-up episode for him, everything has kind of gone the way it's supposed to. He's in a position of prestige. The system as it exists serves him pretty well. So I think this revelation at the end of Act 1, he is certainly going to push back on believing it and believing that this threat is worth going after, or that this, earthquake of a revelation could be true. And that's, I think, in part because it goes at like the foundations of a life that, again, just works for him at this point.
Yeah.
So for Sarah, I think that for her, it's like the shattering of innocence in a lot of ways. I think in the very first episode, when we're like kids, for her, this is the first time that she's ever experienced a life or death situation that she can remember, and then so much of this arc is her living in ignorance and living as just like a really naive person. And I think that that's something that I've kind of discovered listening to it, is that a lot of her decisions that she makes is because she's so desperate to find someone that she trusts. And like anytime somebody gives her an inkling that maybe they could be a trustworthy person, she is very willing to trust those people. She does not question it. She's just like, yep, you're a trustworthy person. She just goes for it. And it's been really funny listening to that. And I'm like, damn, Sarah.
Yeah.
Think a little bit.
I love that about Sarah, though. Like, I think that's super fun. I think there's like three levels of confidence, like, or three different versions of like confidence or lack of confidence with all three characters. Like Steve is like dipshit fun guy, who's like looking at trying to date someone, trying to go on a date, go to a concert with Jenny Grace. Sarah is like the other end of that like teen spectrum. And I think for me, like for Harry, it was very much, I feel like I knew from one that I really wanted to be a politician, and like Harry was a politician as a child, and then because of his relation to the future king, had so much opportunity to become a politician as a child. And then the big like question mark for me as a player and Harry is like whatever, it's like, how does Justin play Asher, and how does like what is the relation to the world and the kingdom within the family, which is really fun and interesting. And I love the first scene that Justin and I had together. I thought it was like so funny and so fun, and was like a good snapshot into Asher particularly.
I knew going into this that you were going to go to a party, and I knew that I wanted that party to go wrong. At some point, I wanted something to happen. And the fun part with the Daggerheart system is that I could just trust that the system would tell me when that moment was. Obviously, I put in like Tinder that would like catch flame, like putting in people who were like contentious, or putting in people who you weren't necessarily aligned with, and situations that were a little more dangerous. But I just kind of let the failure with fear and the with fear trigger when that happened. And I think, Shelby, you brought this up, and I want to like just like be on the record for it. Your death and Amanette was never in my plan. Like I had after that scene, we had like called it an evening, and I had to go home and be like, who is Amanette? How do I spell Amanette? Like just so many things just I didn't have a plan for, but I love that about the system, because I think there were like so many little treasures that came up, that some of them came to fruition. Like I had an idea that like maybe at some point I would like re-trigger the fire exposure for Harry as a possibility.
Oh, sure.
If that ever came up. Obviously like Amanette was pretty frequent. Like Galapagos,
Speedy
the
Galapagos.
band,
Speedy
like,
Galapagos, yeah.
yeah, the Speedy Galapagos, like those all came up pretty organically, and I think this system really kind of fostered.
I agree. I think that is like the one big, I have like other complaints about Daggerheart, which we won't get into, but like not a lot, but that's like the one thing that I cannot knock Daggerheart. Like the perpetual motion of story that like is just sort of like handed to you a little bit. It's still a lot of work on the GM, but comparing it to like Roll for Shoes or something where like everything's just blank slate, you have that little bit of like, it's a success but, or it's success and, is like fucking rad. It's so good.
Well, and yeah, especially from like that improv standpoint, like it's all about yes-anding. And I feel like, you know, I have very little experience with RPGs in general. I've played like one D&D campaign. What was the one we did, Justin?
We did the tarot divination once.
Yes, which was blew my mind because I had never played anything else. And so for this one, I don't know, it just felt more about the storytelling than it did about like, okay, let me look at my D&D Beyond app and see all the numbers and add all like it's just not necessary.
Yeah, I also think the spending of fear mechanic in particular seems like a really, really good way to let the GM stop things from getting stagnant. Like, I, again, have played a lot of D&D, and you can get into this spot where the players are just kind of spinning their wheels. And I have not done a lot of DMing, but I've been in that spot while DMing of like, okay, how long do I let them spin their wheels before I step in and essentially like railroad what's like make the next story beat happen without making it feel like it's coming out of left field. And I think the spending of fear seems like a really natural way to be like, okay, a thing is happening that is going to draw the character's attention. It's going to be something they have to respond to.
I'm going to jump in and ask Justin a question. One of the questions we have here is about sort of like what moment so far was described like as a cinematic masterpiece. I actually tend, as the person that edits all this shit, like I'm usually like I was done with episode 1 before 3 weeks before anyone heard it, and so going back in the last few days and like doing a full re-listen, I don't think I fully appreciated how interesting the set piece of the cave party was until going back and listening to it, because I think when you're in the moment, you're just trying to like figure out the thing. But like, what was sort of the like between the primal magic of like keeping the water out, like what kind of was the inspiration for that, and what was the sort of like, how'd you come up with that?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, I've never like my father grew up in a lake town and would tell stories about like the kinds of things that go on when you're like a townie versus when you're like a summer house visitor. And that plus like, I know we wanted affluence to be a major aspect of at least some of your characters. And so it felt like a good way to create contrast. And the actual party itself, I grew up watching like the OC. And so I just like kind of naturally draw from that kind of vibe. And like, I've never seen it, but I think Outer Banks is like a Netflix show that has the same thing. And so, yeah, and I love playing around with like the concept of primal magic, where what you are drawing from and where your magic comes from is kind of making these like mini deals and appeasing spirits. So that's an easier form of magic if you're a teenager, I think.
Sure. It also like it did really set this tone in a very lighthearted way. It set, there's just a lot of little pieces in there that you did such a good job of like a animated band kind of a thing in the court. Like magic is prevalent, and then be to not just say like general magic is prevalent, but then we saw multiple types of magic specifically set such a good and interesting tone for the rest of like arc 1 and kind of like figuring that out and getting the world. I thought it was great.
It's funny, the like one thing that I really wanted to drive home was the primal magic bag that also had like rave sticks in it that was like making like colors dance on the wall. I was like, they are capable of magic, but they're also still teenagers, and like why wouldn't they make the thing that's like keeping them all safe also a little bit of a disco ball? I like that was an early piece of imagery that I was like, write that down so that you remember to describe it. A lot of other things are like improv in the moment, but I had like written that down as like, this is an important aspect of this scene. Talking about cinematic scenes and kind of a moment that really put me back on my heels, especially because most of my experience in Daggerheart is in the DMC. I like literally have never looked at cards for entire classes, is the Harry scene in the jail. I was genuinely trying to maintain control of the scenario and just was constantly feeling like the plot was slipping through my fingers and that you had full control of everything. Like the guards being like caught off guard was Justin being caught off. Like, I don't know how to handle this situation. I feel like a drunk person.
Yeah, like it was like so fun in the moment. That's like one of a few. I feel like Harry, and I think everyone, as we sort of release the whole series, every arc, everyone has a moment, and I think this is like Harry's big thing in this arc is this jail scene, because it kind of starts the previous episode of like, I think my first big swing is casting Recant on those same guards in the tavern that night. And I was super nervous about doing that in the room because Justin had sort of fully warned me that like enchantment and bard magic is frowned upon. Like fucking with people's brains, not very popular in this world. And so like building like subtle spell as an experience, and then like just trying that kind of shit felt like if this goes bad, we're now in a fight with these guards in this tavern, as like, and the whole arc is fucked a little. And then so like being able to, I didn't have a plan necessarily as to like what I was gonna do with that, them not remembering us, and then didn't other than like, no, you did such a good job of like softballing up the like, we're gonna break someone out or we're gonna like do some fucking business, that I figured like, oh, I just need to go there, be hidden, and then like figure out what happens next. And I just think it was like such a good, the roles told that story in a really fun way of just like, let's try this. Oh, failure, got it. Oh, success, got it. Cool. And then like the fucking crit at the end was just like, so fun, so good.
Just the way I kept being like, I'm sorry, how long are you invisible? I'm sorry, you could just teleport as many times. What?
Just,
what is happening?
No
I've lost control of I've lost control of how this is going to go entirely. Like, I have been 100% like stooped in this moment.
That was so fun.
I've been beaten.
that is what I was going to bring up as the thing I remember from that scene, is the number of times Justin was like, you're allowed to do that?
Yes.
Which is always a fantastic feeling as a player when your GM is scrambling in a way that makes them say, you must be breaking the rules.
There's no way this is how this works.
Right. Yeah. It felt very Scooby-Doo, and I now empathize more with the villains of Scooby-Doo, being like, I saw you go in that door, how are you coming out this other door over here? Like, that breaks the laws of physics, and I am mad about it.
Shout out to the Daggerheart Bard build, because it's split with Wizard, and then like some enchantment stuff, and it's just so like, it just has the perfect blend if you pick the right cards of like arcane trickster scamp along with like straight up enchantment bard stuff, which is really, really fun. It's such a fun build. Recant's so fun. Arcane door, fucking not the last you'll see of that, let me tell you.
Yeah, talk about cinematic moment.
For you, Steve, I'm kind of curious. You are, I think, maybe more than anyone else, Lucan is kind of intertwined into, by being a part of the Church of Baaz, kind of intertwined into a larger scheme in Arc 1. What was you had not previously known the kind of person that Felix was, and getting to interact with him and kind of seeing broadly, like, if your religion is based off of like adventure, ambition, and good fortune, what kind of culture is that going to kind of grow in your organization? Kind of what was that like, hearing your boss and kind of interacting with him?
So obviously our story did not really follow Lucan in Rosinium City, like pre-arriving at this position, right? So yeah, Felix, not a super effective boss in terms of what we've seen from him so far, but the way I've kind of pictured this for Lucan is that when he is like day-to-day in Rosinium City, in that culture, in like the hub of what the Church of Baaz is doing, he wouldn't notice that Felix is any different from anyone else, or like is potentially ineffective or less effective than he could be. But you take Lucan out of that context, you take him out of his home, and you have our first arc take place out in the name of the city where we started. Charnwick. And so you're automatically starting Lucan out of his comfort zone with a real problem that maybe the seat of power in Rosinium City isn't like intimately familiar with, or like doesn't care to be familiar with. And then you see how the church out there is handling a very real problem, and all of a sudden you have this contrast where Lucan can't just say, well, I bet my boss has us under control. I bet Felix has it under control. I bet the church has it under control. There is no one else to exercise that control, right? And so I think where we pick up with Lucan and Felix here is the first time Lucan's starting to see like some of the cracks in, I guess, how the Church of Oz is actually like serving its stated purpose, which he's never really had any reason to question before this.
I'm glad you kind of bring that up. One thing when I was kind of creating the story around all of this, which was, I think, pretty counter to any other time I've ever planned a D&D campaign or a Daggerheart campaign or really any storyline, was how do I make problems that my players cannot solve by being adventurers? Like, what happened to the Steelmarrow tribe, an ally of your country, being like basically left out to dry for a foreign country to annex them, is not something that you can solve. Like, hands down, even in your like higher political positions, this is something that happened 30 years ago, and now like an entire group of people have been like wholeheartedly enslaved. And I think that was a hard story to write, but also kind of like I wanted to try my best to kind of lay out the gravity of that scenario. And I think, Shelby, you did a great job at kind of giving me a gift of like, yeah, I'm going to walk into this sympathy magic and like experience firsthand the like personal experience of this group of people. And I think that was like obviously like pretty heavy to write, but also like the first time I've ever written a campaign that has that level of problems and been like, but that you can't solve it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely grounded it in, I don't know, a relatable place. And I think that just as a player, it's a gift to have something emotional react to. You know, it's hard to create emotion out of thin air. So you did an awesome job of like setting us up to have things to root for and things to care about.
Yeah, and you picked up that baton like super well, and that will continue throughout the rest of the arcs as well. But yeah, I think it was kind of a wild pull.
So fun. Justin, I've got a question. Give me your top 3 NPCs.
Oh, top 3.
From Arc 1.
Yeah, Arc 1. Yeah. Beanie, hands down, like
Easy.
I loved Beanie even before we started recording. She was like so fully manifested in my brain as a character, that I was like, even if they don't, as is often the case when you're the DM, you like think that you know what NPCs will be important, and I was like, I'm going to force Beanie into their hearts in any human way possible, and it wasn't even that hard.
No.
Yeah, she was great. I love Beanie so.
Same. I also loved, selfishly, like Harry's relationship with Beanie not being motherly or not being like jabby or anything like that. It was actually like very sweet and very like endearing and intentional, in a way that went against a couple tropes that you could have probably hit, but instead like really hit a nice. Beanie was a really nice like middle ground on that.
Beanie demonstrated a lot of growth.
Yeah,
she does. Yeah,
she really put herself out of her comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she made a friend.
She learned the name of a person.
Yeah, and then had to go get all the information from the basement, which is
that's true. That's true.
We did ask a lot of Beanie.
Beanie got thrown in the deep end.
Yeah. My second answer is Sister Hennel.
Sure.
And this is because of a particular moment when Steve, I was listening to this at the gym and laughed out loud, where you, Lucan, were like going to talk to, I think it was Sarah. Yes, because it was when you guys were first interviewing or interrogating her. And you were like, hey, can we have a private moment? And Sister Hennel was like, I mean, yeah, if you want to leave my house, to have a private moment, you're more than welcome to.
Lucan forgot where he was.
I know we're in. That's not even like a proper house. It's like a caravan. It's like a wagon.
Yeah, I that's like a personal favorite of mine, both when I'm doing like D&D and when I'm doing improv, of like whenever the other actors forget the scene that we're in, and it's like, no, we're here.
In this library,
If you want to, yeah, like if you want to go and do that elsewhere, but I'm not going to stop you, but you can't do it in my home.
I think there's a read where Lucan is used to being in a position of authority such that he would expect someone like Sister Hennel to go somewhere else so he can have a private conversation.
Yeah.
He didn't see anything wrong with that request.
and she's just this like, I like she's in a situationship. I think because she says she doesn't want to be like tied down. And like, I just love this idea of this like half-baked witch who is like, I am doing just fine on my own. I'm in this merchant, like, I don't need a man. I don't need anyone to hold me down. I have got this.
She really like fell on the sword there at the end too, though.
She did. Yeah.
To go with the story that it was a scorned lover or something like that.
Yeah.
That was actually
absolutely
really funny to edit. I've been like listening to it this week of like basically like elbowing Sister Hennel to be like, hey, you got to sell this fucking story. And then the response being, I spurned him.
Yeah, I really like Sister Hennel. I also he gets like no screen time at all because he's dead. But Otra is actually like my other favorite character from this first arc, because when I made this entire plot, I basically came up with my like the premise to my question. The campaign was, what if the bad guys have already won? Like, they've swapped out the king already. More details to come on that. But like, what then if the loop of their plan is at least like 85% done? What's the like thread that I can pull to make it all begin to unravel that my players can then like jump in on? And it ended up centering on like a spurned lover who kind of tries to take justice into his own hands and inadvertently fucks it up along the way and leaves an entry point for you all then to jump in. And I like, he does it via a like Primal Magic for Dummies, like a little pop psychology book. Like this super serious guard is like, doesn't want to like get too into the weeds, but it's like, yeah, I'll take your like $10 Primal Magic and use it to summon a Revenant. Yeah, I think Otra is my like personal behind the screen, spent time in my head with him, kind of this funny character.
He gets his moment. I don't know, have any of you listened? I think I've uploaded it, the scored version of it. Just you. Otra's like scene where he's summoning the Revenant has maybe the most mustard of anything in Arc 1, as far as scoring and sound effects and stuff like that. And so he gets like, he's like not in anything, and then there's just this like 5 minutes where it's like, oh fuck, this is a scene. It's so cool.
I think this is a great opportunity to give you so many flowers, Nick, because it's one thing to like, having done all of this campaign, I, having just experienced it, feel a lot of pride with how it goes, and the story that we end up telling. But then to get to hear it with like original music and with like sound effects and incredible editing is such a gift and a treat. Yeah, I can't say enough how awesome it is to listen. I've listened to all of the unedited episodes, but we'll go back and listen to the podcast because I know I get like the full juice of the stuff. And it's just like such next level. I love it.
Yeah, the amount of punch all of that adds it's just incredible.
Yeah. I think I've really come, like, Jess and I are in the throes of having to like figure out how to like get the word out on this podcast, which is like just the least fun part of any creative project, is trying to sell it, trying to convince your friends that are only kind of into TTRPGs to listen to 2 hours of TTRPG content. Like it's just awful, and it's really hard. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately of like, what are the benefits? And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think Justin and I both not just really enjoy like TTRPGs, but like true lover of actual well-made actual play podcasts and well-made actual play shows, which I think like that's my goal, is to go like, what do I love about NADPOD? What do I love about the Balance Arc and Adventure Zone? What do I love about Worlds Beyond Number? And like kind of ripping a lot of different stuff from these different places has been really fun as I'm learning how to do all of this. And I think that is like a piece of this podcast that I think there's a lot of live plays out in the world, and so like to offer something that's like, we love this medium, like I really love the storytelling medium of like actual play, and how do we like do it as well as we can. It's been really, really fun.
A character who gets a big lift from the underscoring is Lucan when he like spreads his wings. It felt epic in the moment, but man, does the music just really make him feel like I am a high level follower and clergyman of a god of adventure.
Yes. And I'm using my wings to fly 30 yards this way. For absolutely no reason, for absolute pomp and circumstance. And so to like put a superhero theme under was just so fun.
And I think that is actually like an important thing to know about Lucan at this phase in the story, is that he is actually hyper competent at the thing he's supposed to be doing, right? At the like, he got to this position by being a successful adventurer, by going out and doing. But he's still kind of a dumbass. Like, that's baked into the, like, you don't get to be a super successful adventurer without taking an occasional unnecessary risk or like acting before you think, at least every now and then. Yeah. And I think, again, the sound design, all of that underscores that even in a actual position of power, like, you can't take that out of him.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a really good point for Lucan in general. Like listening to him in these early arc is, when you look at the career trajectory of, I was an adventurer, I went out and did the thing, but you didn't choose to go continue being a general or continue being like some position in that way. You went to the very public, very high, like viewed, most flashy church position where like you're a reality TV star a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so like it's a really interesting, like very telling, if there's maybe like being a little naive within your world. Like I think that's really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Shout out moment for that was when and like full disclosure, you were close when you were like fighting the Revenant the first time. Like Shelby, you had Sarah and I had Mira be like, no, we're leaving. And Luke and Steve, you were like, no, I think I got this. And I imagine your character's like bleeding profusely. Like you were also, it did. You were like, I think I can do this.
The Revenant might have been close, as you say. Lucan also pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think Harry, Nick, you brought a lot of really good politics to this opening. Like, you feel like a senator from episode 1 on, but I think in your conversations with Gustavo Reyes, who like, man, I dropped the accent so fast on that guy.
Honestly, probably for the best.
I remember doing later scenes with Gustavo being like, no, he doesn't have an accent. And then listening to him in the episodes being like, oh, he definitely had an accent. And I'm very unsure what it was.
It was gone by the next episode, though. So it's
it was the one scene. It was so fast. Yeah, back when I was managing only like 4 or 5 characters, because Beanie is a person in my heart.
Yeah.
She's not a character. I don't have to worry about role playing Beanie. She's just like in my like back pocket now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Beanie's where the autism lives.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Beanie is, there's just a part of Justin that is Beanie for sure. Yeah, I think you really brought a lot of the politics. I think there were moments where in talking to him, you were like, well, what can we do? And I was like, gosh, you're playing one of those people who's like actually good at this negotiation thing, which I am not. And I'm juggling a lot of things right now. So you could just have your way.
That's what's funny is like, talking about just like learning to take swings. I'm not an improviser. I'm like more musician. I've not really done a ton of performance stuff. And so like this Harry Bench was like someone that lives in me, like of like, there's a lot of me and Harry, but then there's a lot of like Jed Bartlett. There's a lot of like the West Wing. There's a lot of that sort of like thing. And so that moment, like probably, I don't think I realized in the moment, but is like if you guys remember the pilot episode of The West Wing where they're arguing at the end, it's like the last scene, and Jed Bartlett just comes in and kind of like yells a Bible verse at everyone and just like shuts the fucking room down. And it is like this, like to come in yelling at Gustavo was like not a Nick choice. That was like a very Nick would never, but like it felt very much like, no, Harry's fucking salty because this dude's like blew me off on day 1 straight up, and then like kind of like his poll numbers are slipping, he's a kind of a mess. And I think Harry truly from 1 and like even in our session 0, like Harry, and this is the part like that's Nick, like truly believes in the democratization, truly believes like, and I think it's fucking mad when people are doing a shitty job. Like I think like seeing Gustavo kind of like in over his head and kind of fucking this situation up actually makes Harry really upset because it's just like, we don't have enough power as it is, and it's because of people like you kind of not being able to figure out what to do with the power you get. And so like I think that is definitely a thing that you see through Harry like through the whole show, but that's definitely like the start of that, is that sort of, there's that me being shitty but also trying to be helpful to Gustavo, and then the rest of this whole thing you see Harry just being like, everyone needs to be my friend at the end of this because I'm gonna have to call you for a favor later.
I always felt like Harry knew exactly what was going on and knew exactly what the plan was going to be. And so often Sarah's like, all right, Harry, what do we do?
Harry knew what Harry's plan was. And Harry was just like, you got the Earth Tribe shit, right? I like put no thought into the stuff that I had no thought towards. That's so funny.
I was just like, well, he has the answers. So
that's so funny.
From each of your perspective, what are some scenes, or what is the scene that was like just the peak for you in Arc 1 as a player, as a character? What was your top scene to be in?
I think for Lucan, the resolution with the Revenant, that entire kind of process felt like a really good opportunity for him to demonstrate what he is competent in, from the pulling adventurers in to come with him.
Yeah.
And kind of using his like the big guy from the big city. Yeah. Like, this is your chance to impress somebody who might remember it, in the midst of being undercut locally with the shifting of all the adventurers to like kobold depopulation. Starting from that as a step towards Lucan getting to do a little bit more than, I'm going to solve the Revenant problem by punching it in the face until I can't anymore. And like being able to be like, okay, we have this wizard adventurer who I can like have try and help out Tsar. Like do a little bit more from the like almost like leadership perspective than the blunt instrument perspective.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up, because I think in general, in my years of doing DMing and GMing and stuff, is I never want my players to not be the heroes. And so I generally will dissuade them from like recruiting other people, which in the real world, if you were dealing with a problem, you would absolutely want help. But I think what you did really well in that, and like position yourself well as being a clergyman of Baaz, was that you were the leader of these people.
Well, and you facilitated.
And so like it was still your story.
Yeah.
You didn't go look for another high ranking adventurer.
Yeah. And like the way that set of scenes played out, it was obvious there was a gap in competence between this group of 4 and between Lucan, right? Like Lucan is a prelate. He's been here before, like he's been in the ship before, and the best these followers, these guys I recruited can do is at best add a little bit to what we're trying to do. Like they're not out solving the problems independently of the characters.
Yeah, I will not have you be putting disrespect on. I think his name is Jace.
Yes.
Sorry, yes,
because I definitely made that name up. Yeah, I made that name up. So like, forgive me for it
Dawson,
being,
Jason,
Dawson.
Frankie. I think. Yeah.
Frankie.
Yeah, I think Jace was the wizard, and
Jace
he was
was
just
the
like,
wizard, yes.
I rolled really poorly on his magic, and he was like, I can't read this book upside down.
They're
Like,
not sharing. Is the funny line.
Yeah.
They're not sharing the book very well.
That was one of my favorite Justin line deliveries, along with the I spurned him, was the they're not sharing.
I think Sarah just in general had a really satisfying progression and satisfying arc in arc 1. I think that like the 2 encounters that she has with the Revenant, the first one using kind of like a level 2 spell, using the Fireflies to get it to go, that was a big moment for her. And then finally at the end when she crits and it destroys the Revenant and sucks it into hell and whatever, it just feels like a really powerful moment for her because it kind of solidifies. It doesn't solidify anything. What it does is it starts to point her into the answer of whose side are you on? Because I think that's Sarah's whole question. This whole season is going to be, whose side are you on?
I actually have a follow-up to that I have actually written down because I feel like Harry was like, I kind of feel like I knew what I was going to do entering this season because I had a more straight ahead character. Shelby, like for Sarah, like I think you're like navigating your roots and like meeting the tribes people, like as someone who like just hasn't been there and like in maybe their most of their life, like how did you anticipate coming into the story? Like what was your like mindset as far as like that code switcher kind of vibe, and like how much connection did you assume you'd have to the tribes versus like what ended up being the case?
I think that my assumption going into it is that she really doesn't know much other than the fact that of like how she got to Resenium City. All she knows is that her mother was a chiefess and that Sarah herself was given as a tribute of peace. That's really all she knows. And I went into it assuming that she's been very sheltered about what has happened. And so then when she gets to the caravan and she finds out that people have heard of her and view her as like this traitor, and she puts her in this position where she's like, what the fuck? Like, people don't like me at home. People don't like me here.
Yeah. I mean, I am like a firm believer that you should never write more than like 30% of your story before you start getting your players involved. And when we all got together to originally talk about this, and I was like, all right, what kind of character do you want to be? You were like, I want to be a ward. And I was like, oh my, what a gift. God, that really was like immediately blossomed so many ideas of like, how can I like absolutely wreck you in that position? Because like, it's so tough.
Yeah.
Like wards don't choose to be in those positions and are then like, they get no friends out of it.
Because then she's put in this position of, I am privileged with the position that I have. So I don't want to take that for granted, but also these people who have given me this position of privilege have done nothing for me necessarily. And so it's like, I can't totally turn away from this place that I have any semblance of power. It's like, I don't necessarily agree with the politics of Venethar. I don't agree with the policies, but also, what am I going to do about it? If I turn my back on it, then I have nothing. Or I can try to use this power and then sneakily use it to my advantage, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Well, your answer.
Oh, what was the question? What question are we on?
I really want you to like truncate that and leave it in. The question was, what was like this?
Oh, the scene.
The scene. Yeah.
I mean, I loved. There are a few scenes. There's one that I like that comes in the second arc that I just didn't sleep the night that it happened. Then this was the other one that like it took me a few hours to come down from the jail scene. Like that was like peak for like me personally. But from the big picture story wise, I think finding the basement was a really interesting and like hard in a few ways like scene, because it felt like drinking from a fire hose. Like we're just like it's just like a what the fuck, like okay, like here's stuff from the Divine Codex that like is deep lore, and here's this other stuff which like in the moment I think I felt overwhelmed. I don't know if Steve and Shelby, you guys felt like overwhelmed by that lore dump.
It was I think the hardest part of it for me was that Steve, the player, had to process all this new information in order to understand how to continue playing the game Daggerheart. Mm-hmm. And I had to do that while also staying true to like, okay, how is Lucan going to process this? Like, what is his reaction going to be? How is he going to interact with this fire hose of info in a way that still feels authentic to who he is right now? Especially because like I don't want to be mean to Lucan. Steve is smarter than Lucan is.
Yes, 100%.
Which not a high bar.
Steve's a lawyer, so.
So there was the like, okay, Steve is putting together some of these puzzle pieces, but he's probably further along in assembling that puzzle than Lucan would be as we are in this basement. So how do I go back into that character when we're back into playing the game part of it and still be true to like how Lucan would be understanding things?
Yeah. And when I say overwhelming, that can sound like a bad thing, but like I think that's the moment, right? Is like it's fucking overwhelming. Like as like characters and players, Absolutely. It's just like so this is big, and like we still have to deal with the thing that we're dealing with right now. So it's like it's a very human moment where you're like, this has to be handled, but there's a thing that we have to just ignore this for the next 24 hours so that we can handle the other big things. Feels like very like human and just true of life, of like I've just been handed a big fucking pile of shit and I just have to hold it while I do my job for the next 6 hours, and then we can deal with the pile of shit later.
See, as the GM, I had the opposite reaction in that moment. I had been holding this secret for at least months, from our planning session, which happened at least a month before our recording, to before that, when we are technically recording what will be season 2. I have known that he was not the real incarnate king and just could tell no one. Like, I mean, it's not like I'm keeping a real secret from my friends, but I had at this point been playing like 30 hours in a world with people and like just couldn't tell anyone that I'd been lying to them. And so it was so nice to be like, I feel relieved. Now I could like not worry about, because there are so many like important things, like when you are talking to Asher on the way to the party and you're like asking him about like the memory issues, and he's not having those.
Might not. might not have them. Like, just me trying to be comforting to my nephew was actually like,
Yeah,
oops.
yeah. And there are a couple things in season 2 that I also like was always like keeping an eye on, because I don't, or in arc 2 I was like keeping an eye on these things because I was like, don't mess this up. That lets the whole plot unravel. But it was just such a relief to be like, finally I can talk to someone about the fact that he's not real. It's all a ruse. Something has happened. Yeah. It felt great to me. Yeah, I think the last thing I want to ask for everyone is just like a shout out moment for everyone else. Something that you were like, oh man, props to Lucan for this moment. Props to Harry for this moment.
One of the jokes that made me laugh really hard throughout it was the mention of horchata.
Yeah.
He's so invested in the horchata.
Yeah.
It really tickled me.
For sure. As a person who loves horchata myself, it was great to just like get to talk about that for
You're
a hot
like,
second.
oh, can I get my breakfast horchata? Oh, we can also make it like an iced latte. And you're like, can I have both? So invested.
I think one of our spin-off projects should be like horchata recipes with Justin. Just an entire
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, but then with that too, the towers and flowers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I loved that.
Truly one of those totally made that up on the spot type of things where, yeah, and like the Venethar flower will come up several times. But yeah, another improv moment that really pays dividends.
Yeah. That was, just bullshitting me lying to fucking the Soul Guard as teenagers.
Yes,
Towers and Flowers
that's
was
how that
invented
started.
as a ruse to get Asher out, and then it becomes
Yes.
this really like lovely centerpiece for Lucan in particular, which is awesome.
Yes.
Which rules.
Yes.
Yeah. My favorite, my like real sweet spot, like kind of shout out was there's like, while I do the jail scene, I have this like 25-minute chunky bit, but like there's like 2 hours where it's just Sarah and Lucan, like the three of you holding down in a really entertaining, like fun, like I think at one point you even asked like, is Harry gonna come? I'm like, I'm good. Like you guys, like it was so fun to watch you guys deal with the Revenant, talk with Amira, talk with Sister Hennel. Like those were such good scenes that like as a player and as like a listener in the room, I was just like, I don't have anything to add to this. Like this is fucking great. This rules. Yeah, shout out to that.
Yeah, sorry. I think especially the Sister Hennel scenes are a standout. I think you did a great job taking the lead on that, as Lucan was like, I'm afraid of this lady.
Yeah.
She's kind of mean. Like, I felt like the whole dynamic in that scene just worked out really, really well.
Yeah, it was great.
I think for me, it was when shit hit the fan at the party.
Yeah.
And kind of how Lucan and Harry divvied up problems really quickly, and how Sarah was interacting with Aminette. Like, it all really felt kind of like how I would expect burgeoning young adults to be like, oh no, fun's over. I now have to exercise my 50% developed frontal lobe to do the best that I can. Or in Harry's case, my, still 50% developed front lobe. Like, it was a really cool moment. Again, because I did not know going into this how the problem was going to arise. I just wanted to put you guys in a crappy situation. How you guys made the situation feel even more tense by adding in your character's level of like, all right, fuck it, we ball them out.
That was one thing I noticed listening back to that scene is like, I was so inexperienced as a player that I didn't know how to save myself. Now that I've played it, I'm like, I could have done this. I had a way to save myself. Shelby didn't know it, and it ended up shaping the story so well that it's a blessing in disguise.
I will also shout out another moment that you really surprised me was with your ability to like flash back via your spirit.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I remember being like, I'm sorry, what does your ability do?
What is this playtest
Show
bullshit?
it to me.
Yeah. And it was like, I mean, again, it was totally great because I knew that this was not the problem, right? Like you guys solving this needed to happen. And so like, I guess like GM tip, in a world where you have characters who can speak with dead or like premonition answers, murder mysteries are tough, and you should always account for that in your murder mystery. Like, just assume someone can talk to the dead body and ask them who killed them.
Yeah.
So, right. So,
make sure your corpses were stabbed in the
those
back and
moments.
didn't see it.
Yeah.
Exactly. A pushing daisies moment, if
Right.
you will. Stab them in the back so they can't see it. Awesome. I am super excited for how Arc 2 is going to get going. Things really take a turn. We head back to Resinium City and get to see everyone kind of in their quote unquote home environments, but with a secret that they have to start to unravel. So definitely more to come with the Custodia Sanguis. Yeah. Can't say enough how much we appreciate you all listening, both to the actual podcast and to this Patreon episode. I hope it was as enjoyable for you. It makes me want to dive right back in, and I can't wait for the next episode to drop. If you have not followed us on social media, you can find us where it matters on Instagram and on Reddit. If you have not already subscribed and liked every video and left a review, please do so. All of that makes all of the world of difference. We've worked pretty hard on all of this and want as many people to hear it as we can. So give us that like, follow, and review when you get an opportunity. Thanks.
You've been listening to Faith and Fortune by Theater of the Mindset. Our actual players this season are Steve Ettinger, Shelby Myers, Nick Traeger, and your kind and generous GM, Justin Gerardo. Audio engineering, post-production, and scoring is done by Nick Traeger at Studio 3607. If you're enjoying the show, you can help us grow with no capital investment by sharing it with a friend, following us on Instagram and Reddit, writing us a review on your favorite podcatcher, or you can chip in for coffee at our Patreon. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on Theater of the Mindset.